The Pandora papers reveal how the rich, the famous, and the notorious, many of whom were already on the radar of investigative agencies, set up complex multi-layered trust structures for estate planning in jurisdictions which are loosely regulated for tax purposes but characterized by airtight secrecy laws.
Pandora papers essentially looks at one aspect of this entire offshore businesses, which is focuses a lot more on the trusts. Trusts are a very complex, offers a very complex kind of structure to hide or mask information about the real owners of companies which are set up in tax jurisdictions which have got very lax regulatory oversight. They could be in Samoa, they could be in BVI, British Virgin Islands, they could be in Guernsey, Channel Islands, or any of these places. So let me try to explain very quickly what is this whole trust business and whether these offshore trusts are they recognized as per the Indian laws. So offshore trusts are recognized as per the Indian laws also. But what is the trust? A trust essentially has 3 or 4 elements. One is essentially the settler, who's the settler of the trust. The settler of this trust is the person who authors or creates the trust. He sets up the trust. This trust could be, as I said, in any jurisdictions. It could be New Zealand, it could be Delaware in the US, it could be in Singapore, or any of the tax, poor tax regulated jurisdictions like BVI or Samoa or Guernsey. Besides the settler, another important individual or a body corporate in a trust would be the protector. So the protector in a trust is essentially a person who derives all his authority from the settler of the trust, the person who sets up the trust. So the protector actually supervises another person who's integral to the setting up of a trust, the trustee. So this protector is a person or a body corporate which supervises the trustee. Who's the trustee? Trustee gives the legal character to the trust because it is not the owners of the assets or the settler or the beneficiaries of the trust who are liable to come back to regulatory authorities when questions are asked. So it is the trustee who's answerable or who gives the legal character to the trust. And then finally, there are the beneficiaries. Beneficiaries are people for whom the assets are parked in a trust, and they are the people who will derive the benefits which are distributed by the trust. So these are the 4 different elements: the settler, the protector, the trustee, and the beneficiaries, essentially to the nature of a trust or integral to the trust. So trust offers great advantages to Indian corporates or individuals. One big advantage which trusts offer is the enhanced secrecy level. So, in Panama Papers, we saw that international business companies were set up in these tax jurisdictions. There are several offshore entities on top of which the trust sits. The trust essentially tells all these individual offshore entities, which are all off-the-shelf entities in tax jurisdictions, on what they should be doing with their investments. The protector also advises the trustee on how to manage this trust. So that is one aspect of it. So getting to the ultimate beneficial owner in trust is a very, very difficult job. So this enhanced secrecy kind of also is a veil which income tax departments, not just in India but globally, find it very difficult to penetrate. So to get back to the ultimate beneficial owner of a trust, so they have to send requests for information to international tax jurisdictions, and we have documents or the correspondence between tax jurisdictions which suggests that it takes a inordinately long time for income tax departments in India to get information from overseas tax jurisdictions. So one is enhanced secrecy. The other important aspect of trust is it offers the settler of the trust or the person who creates the trust some degree of separation. It projects a degree of separation from the assets of the trust. So if I am a settler and I am setting up the trust, and I transfer a set of assets into the trust, then it allows me to distance myself from these assets. So that is a big advantage in say in ensuring, say for instance, if I am a big business person and I have a company which does legitimate business, say for instance in real estate, and if in real estate because of whatever reasons the market is not doing well, so my loans to banks which the company would have taken, the company is unable to pay the loans of the banks. So by transferring my personal assets or my family assets into a trust, what I essentially do is I try to insulate all my wealth from the liabilities of the company. So I kind of de-risk my personal assets from the liabilities which the companies have. So, a company defaults on bank loans worth thousands of crores. What does the bank do? The bank immediately tries to attach the assets of the company. But nowadays, with more and more activism on the parts of banks also, and for good reasons, banks also try to attach the personal properties of the settler or the company who sets up, or the person who's setting up this business. So this degree of separation allows the settler or a promoter to separate himself or distance himself from his personal assets from the company which he has promoted. Another interesting aspect which we are seeing of late in the last 5 years, 5 or 7 years, many companies have gone into the trust on setting up of trust, because there is a huge fear in the Indian corporate sector that the estate duty which used to be there in the 1950s until about 1985, for almost 3 decades, that there will be a return of the estate duty. What is an estate duty? Estate duty essentially is a death tax or an inheritance tax. When I, as a owner of business, or I have lots of assets, when I pass it on to my next generation, earlier there used to be a duty which could be as high as 85% in India. Now, when you have a trust mechanism, the trust allows the settler or the beneficiaries to avoid paying of this estate duty. So many promoters, many Indian businessmen over the last 7 years have moved their assets into a trust so that they protect their beneficiaries from the prospects of an estate duty which might happen, which there have been very speculative reports over the last 3 years or so that in India estate duty may make a comeback. There is something to say about India's reforms also. So despite so many years of since 91, we have been reforming the Indian economy, cutting duties and bringing it at par with the rest of the world. One of the areas where India is still very, very controlled is on the capital account convertibility front. So till now, even today, an individual can take only $250,000 to the US under the liberalized remittance scheme of the Reserve Bank of India. So this annual limit of $250,000 for the super rich or the ultra high net worth individuals is very less. So, given that capital controlled economic environment that we have, many Indians tend to become NRIs, because when you become an NRI, the limit of the money that you can take abroad legally is almost 4 times. Like, you can take out of India about almost $1 million every year. On top of that, all the incomes that you generate since you are an NRI outside of India, that also gets added to the kind of investments that you can make. So essentially the trust, which is a family or estate planning mechanism, can potentially be used for a lot of purposes which allude to a bit of secrecy, where you kind of don't want to tell the tax department that I am the owner. It also helps you save tax, and it also helps you insulate your personal wealth or family's wealth from the risks or liabilities that you are taking on the business side.